apologize for the delay in starting. We're having a few technical problems, but then all of those things have been sorted out and we are set to go.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much. And so once again, you're all welcome to this evening's event. We have an industrial seminar titled From Tech to the Big Techs. It promises to be a very interesting event this evening. We have a number of notable alumni from KNUST here to speak to us and educate us. And so I entreat all students to quickly, for those who have not yet joined us, quickly log in and then join us as soon as possible. My name is Richard Kofimiriko-Isiama, the GISA Academic Board Chairperson, and I'll be your host for this evening's event. Before we set the ball rolling, let me speak to a gentleman I have with me. Right, and so I have with me here Mr. Alfred J. Mensah. He's the line chair. Right, and so Mr. J. Mensah is the line chair, Leadership in Engineering Committee head. And I'm going to be speaking to him for a few minutes before we start the program. When it's under his office that this program is being organized, and so it's only right that we speak to him to get a little more insight into today's event. And so, Mr. AJ Mensah, you're welcome.
You every time that you be the MC.
All right. So tell us a bit more about this program. Why from tech to the big techs?
Okay. So generally, an overview of who Line is and what we are. We are basically a committee or one of the numerous committees under GISA, and Line, which is Leadership in Engineering. We generally seek to help students or give engineering students the opportunity to not only attain a degree, but also give them insightful programs and skills, all in conjunction to bridge the gap between the work and the schooling environment.
And then the inspiration behind today's program.
Okay, so generally, in an attempt to bridge the gap between the schooling and the work environment, we looking at engineering students in KNUST as well. We decided tech to big techs because, or we came about the tech to big techs because of generally, like I said, to help bridge the gap. So we looked at alumni because they have been where we are, and you could say they have been where we are going to be. So far as we get the rightful insights and in-depth know-how as to how they went about their careers and everything, because we want to attain excellence in everything we do.
Thank you very much, Mr. J. Mensah. I'm sure we're going to have a wonderful time speaking to these panelists today. We appreciate everything your office is doing for us. Thank you very much. And so we move on and set the ball rolling. I'll start by introducing once again our panelists for this evening. And please, when I mention your name, kindly unmute yourself and then give us a little hello just to acknowledge your presence. And so we have our first speaker, our first panelist, Mr. Roland Ribeiro. He's an analog design manager with Texas Instruments.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for having me. My name is Roland. Looking forward to contributing to this discussion.
Nice. Thank you very much, Mr. Ribeiro. And we have, I'm told, his brother, Mr. Frank Ribeiro, also a network provisioning engineer with Netflix and a former development engineer with Amazon. Mr. Frank Ribeiro.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to our discussion.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Thank you too for acknowledging or for accepting our invitation. We have also Miss Judy Amono Wedu, Senior Analog Engineer. Miss Judy.
Yeah, so I'm honored to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I look forward to the discussions and the questions from the audience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miss.
And just to correct it, it's not Miss, please. It's Doctor. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Please forgive me. All right, Dr. Judy Amano Wedu. Forgive me there. And finally, Mr. Ernest Mills, the Head of Strategy and Operations, EMEA GTM with Google. Mr. Ernest Mills.
Hi, yeah, I was again on my unmute. I'm happy to be here. Looking forward to the next session.
All right, sure. Thank you very much too for joining us this evening. And so let me start with a little introduction. I want you to personally introduce yourselves. Tell us your names, your current workplace, the position you are holding there. And I mean, which program did you study whilst you were here in Kenya? And so I'll start with Mr. Roland Ribeiro. Kindly, a little introduction of yourself. Mr. Roland Ribeiro. Yeah, kindly introduce yourself for us.
I was.
Okay.
Yeah, I was muted for some reason. So my name is Roland Ribeiro. I am currently working with Texas Instruments as an analog IC design manager in Santa Clara, California. The team I work with, we work on ICs for high-speed wireline communication. So anything that deals with high-speed data probably have some of our chips in there somewhere. So I went to KNUST. I did electrical engineering, graduated in 2011, and then moved on to Texas A&M, where I did my master's. So I finished Texas A&M in 2014, and I've been with Texas Instruments in California ever since.
Sure, thank you very much. Mr. Frank Ribeiro.
Yeah, so my name is Frank, currently working with Netflix as a senior network engineer, previously a network provisioning engineer with Netflix. I studied electrical engineering, graduated in 2010 here at UST. I've been working for the past 10 years, currently based in, basically what I'm doing now with Netflix is supporting streaming service globally to be able to kind of have all users access the good quality of experience of the Netflix streaming service. So that's just the thing. As we go on, I'll throw more light on.
Thank you very much. I need to ask, is Mr. Roland your biological brother?
Yes, Roland is my younger brother.
Yeah.
I'm your younger brother. It's funny because I also have a younger sister. She's also with me here in school. So this promises to be an interesting discussion for me myself. All right, Doctor, madam, kindly introduce yourself to us.
All right. Yeah, thanks. So I graduated from KNUST in 2010 in electrical engineering. I went on for my graduate degrees, a master's and a PhD, and also in electrical engineering. And right now I'm working as a senior analog engineer at Intel. What I do at Intel, so basically think about it, when you hear about the cloud is actually hosted on a series of servers. And my job is to get the fastest servers operating very efficiently. So by efficiently, meaning that it's consuming less power So I do power delivery for the data centers. So when you think about, your Facebook, your Google, anything that has to do with cloud, um, I'm doing power delivery for those or for that hardware that serves the cloud. So that's a little bit about myself.
Thank you very much. Very interesting stuff there. Finally, Mr. Mills.
Hi. So my name is Dennis Mills. I'm actually Judy and Frank's classmate. So we're all part of 2010 electrical engineering. And then I worked for about 6 years and then moved to actually do an MBA at Yale. And then I currently work in Google more on the business side. So I do strategy and operations. That's sort of more on business strategy for a few of our products, specifically on the ads side.
Like to inform all the students with us that we are taking questions. And so in the course of the presentations, if you have any question, you could kindly type them in the chat room, and then the speakers will address them for you accordingly. We have a number of questions that we'll be asking all around to each of the panelists. And so, if I call you, you answer, you kindly answer for me. And then if you have any follow-up, any of you have any follow-ups on any of the submissions any of the other panelists have made, I would appreciate it if you could add up to their submissions. I would like to start with Dr. Amano Buedu. I don't know, could you kindly brief us a little on your life here in Kenya? I think you read electrical engineering, and for many of us, and I'm sure it's quite obvious that the number of females in many of the engineering classes is quite low. And I'm sure it might even have been a more difficult situation during your time. I wanted to tell us, what were your few experiences that you had during your time? How difficult or easy was it for you relating in a class where it was more male dominated?
Yeah, thanks for your question. Honestly, I did not see it that way. My life at Kenny still was great. There were some great experiences. I think what motivated me to work hard, I was involved in sports a lot for the KNUST. For KNUST, I think in my last year I was the general secretariat for the sports directorate. So it was more about trying to prove that doing sport, anyone can combine sports with academic work. Because one of the misconceptions is if you are doing sports, that means, you're not really good academically. So that was one of my primary factors to prove to everybody that you can still be the best of the two worlds. So, we went, I was like the 3-time champion for discus for GISA, the GISA games, and also did very well in my academics. So I wouldn't say that I looked at myself as being one of the few females in electrical engineering or in engineering as a whole. My classmates were supportive. There wasn't like male, female. We are all going through the program together. So that's a little bit about my experience. That once you put your mind to something, it's always possible to do it, and you need some sort of motivating factor to keep you going.
So thank you very much, Doctor. I don't know, with Mr. Frank, I don't know, would you also say the same thing? Were you yourself involved in any sporting activities, or maybe even your brother?
So I was not involved in sports. I think I had a very let me say predictable period. I was just into electrical engineering. I didn't have many extracurricular activities aside my church activities that I had, which I was kind of the general secretary. I was not into sports at all. But I think, yeah, Roland was kind of more into music. I think he can throw more light on that.
Yeah, Roland, please kindly do that for us.
Yeah, I was in a university choir for, well, in first year I was choir master for my church choir. Well, that's pretty much throughout K University. I joined the university choir somewhere in second year. And it could be we could have some pretty long rehearsal hours depending on, when we had programs. So it could distract a little bit from academic work, but it was pretty much, I would say, the only extracurricular activity I was involved in. I did a little bit of writing here and there, but nothing significant. But yeah, I mean, combining that with academics and tech it's not the easiest, but it's extremely doable. And I mean, I think one thing for me that I wish I had done more back in my undergrad experience is basically just do more things outside of the classroom. And I think that the stuff you learn from those kind of activities is as important as what you learn in the classroom as well.
Okay, all right, sure. Thank you very much. I think that nowadays, for many of us, it's a bit of an internal battle because there are many extracurricular activities that you could get yourselves involved in. But then there's also your studies, your academics. You know how demanding engineering is. I don't know what your take on it is, but would you advise that, I mean, a particular engineering student take part in any extracurricular or focus on entirely on your academics, like I think Mr. Frank did? Yes, and so any of you could kindly attempt it, or Mr. Mills, if you would like to.
Okay. Cool. So, I mean, I think the answer is very obvious, that you should be engaged in extracurricular activities, right? Like Roland was referring to, you learn a lot from those kinds of experiences. And I myself was involved a lot in church, right? In final year, I was the president of Harvard KNUST. I was prayer director in third year. I was drama secretary in second year. So I was really involved. Like in my first and second years, I was going to church like 6 out of 7 days in a week, right? But like Roland was saying, doing that and combining it with academics is hard. And what I was able to sort of get me through it was be really diligent and disciplined, right? Like one of my roommates, when he saw my timetable that I had, he said, "You have your life on paper." I had like Monday through to Sunday, morning till night, including church, school, even visiting, going out to visit and socializing. Like I had all of that on paper, and that was how I was able to sort of balance it and manage like a third class in electrical engineering, but also leading a group such as Talent. And so I think what companies are looking for, especially big tech and now most companies with leadership skills, and a lot of these skills you build outside of the classroom, organizing events, doing sports, stuff like that. And so it's very helpful. Highly encourage everyone to get involved.
So I feel that what I can take on this is that it has to be a blend. It has to be a perfect blend for you because you shouldn't concentrate too much on the extracurricular activities and then forget your books. Meanwhile, concentrating entirely on your books too might not be or might not give you the best of results because many companies out there are looking for someone who can manage or balance the two of them. That's very interesting. For many of us, interesting for us because we wonder how can an ordinary student in KNUST end up in Intel, and it's something that it seems it's mind blowing, right? I want to know, Doc, please, how was the journey like for you? From KNUST to Intel, how was it like? Doc.
Okay, so yeah, it looks like I couldn't unmute there for a second. Yeah, thank you for your question. So I'll say that before I answer the question, I wanted to add a little bit to what Ernest said, because if you don't participate in all these extracurricular activities, then when you are applying for these jobs, it looks like, oh, you don't like networking with people. All you are interested in is concentrating on your studies. And companies are looking at all these extracurricular that you are doing. My journey to Intel basically was through networking. When I did my master's at Texas A&M University, it was all about studies. I didn't network. I didn't, because I'm like, okay, I need to get my grades, and that is what will take me to a company, or that is what will get me hired. But I didn't network. I didn't do anything. So it was all about the grades. And then when it came to looking for a job, my network was very limited. So when I started pursuing my PhD, I took a whole different direction. I participated in a lot of societies. I co-founded some societies. I built my network, and through that network, that's how I got to Intel. And even at Intel, I'm still trying to build my network. So if I have any advice for anyone, it will be more about try to build your network. It's okay to connect with somebody on LinkedIn, but when you're connecting with them, don't just send them, connect. Send them a message that, okay, I am so and so. I'm a student at KNUST, and I would like to connect with you and maybe learn more about your background, or where about how you got to where you are right now. And that is something that will make whoever is on the other side feel like, oh, okay, this is somebody that I like to connect with. So no matter where you are, no matter whether you're in first year, final year, try to build your network. Because as we have a saying that it's not who you know, it's who knows you. So that's a little bit that I'll say.
Thank you very much. I think that it's something that the students with us, should actually take note. If you have a pen and paper, please write it down. You should try to build your network, irrespective of the year. As Doc said, it's important that you build your network. You also mentioned LinkedIn. I don't know whether, Mr. Frank, you could help us, let's little bit more light on the importance of LinkedIn. I feel that personally, we are spending too much time on other social media platforms. We are not actually taking advantage of LinkedIn. Could you kindly throw more light on the importance of LinkedIn for us?
Yeah, hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, so for me, LinkedIn has been very, very helpful throughout my career. I think LinkedIn is my only social media network that I'm actually very active on. My entire journey from I think from Ghana to Amazon was really through LinkedIn. So like Judy was saying, connecting with people and asking them, like finding out from them how they reached where they reached. So for me, what I started doing after school was kind of looking at profiles that were similar to mine. So I started by looking at people who have studied like electrical engineering, who had similar interests like I did, and who were working in big tech companies. And I actually connected to all these, a number of them, introducing myself and asking them, okay, I want to get to this point. What do I have to do? So LinkedIn is really crucial. For me, I had a lot of people who mentored me on LinkedIn in my journey to big tech. So I would say that it's a very important tool that many people really overlook. But for networking, I think LinkedIn is really key. And for engineering, there's so much that you can learn. Now LinkedIn has a learning portal as well. So there are so many courses that you can take on LinkedIn to kind of acquire the skills that are needed. It's not just about what you learn in the classroom nowadays. It's also about having hands-on skills and having that a diverse set of skills outside what you learn in class. So I think LinkedIn is really crucial especially for mentoring and entering into these big tech firms.
Thank you very much. And in your profile, it says that you worked at Huawei. I think that is that true, please?
Yes, so I started my career after tech. I did my national service with Huawei Technologies, and I think that was where I decided what I wanted to do. I always had an interest in communication, so Huawei was actually a very good place. I think myself and Ernest I think we had a national service in Huawei, so that's where we all started, and then from there kind of connected with people, got mentors here and there.
So if you could give us what happened, what happened? How did it all? How did you end up where you are now? And then also,
Okay,
kindly also touch on the difference in the working environments in Ghana here and outside. Is if there's any notable difference.
okay. So I think starting with Huawei. So I'll just summarize my career. I started with Huawei, and it was in Huawei that I decided to kind of go into networking as my career track. In Huawei, I got to know of certifications which were kind of known to us when we were in school. We knew of professional certifications, but I really didn't place a lot of value on them till I got to Huawei. So in Huawei, I started learning for these professional certifications, which were very hands-on and giving me like the specific skill set I needed for networking, which is what I do now. So after staying in Huawei for about 3 years, I moved to Alcatel-Lucent, which eventually became Nokia, also in the same field, which also exposed me to a different side. It was kind of a hybrid environment where we were working for the government of Ghana on a project. So I got to work with ministries, municipalities, and also working from a multinational firm that was Alcatel-Lucent. I kind of had a very hybrid side, like viewing how it was to work in the public sector in Ghana and also working from the private company. After 2 years, I moved to the Ghana Great Company, where I stayed, I think, for another 2 years. So in all this period, I was still focusing on my professional certification. So I pursued the Cisco Certified Internetwork track. Alongside, it took me about 3 years to finally get to the final stage. So at that point, I started connecting on LinkedIn, reaching out to people who were working in Amazon and Facebook and Google, because I was like, okay, if I'm a network engineer, I want to see the biggest networks of the world and, have that kind of experience. And I had seen some people who had that trajectory, like they schooled in, for example, maybe Nigeria, worked in Huawei, worked in Nokia. So once I saw that, okay, I had those similarities, I kind of engaged them, and that was how it happened. I applied through LinkedIn and had some mentors who were working in Huawei, who were working in Amazon at that time. And yeah, went through the interview. There was no, it was really straightforward. Once you have people who have, gone through that path, it's kind of easy, when they give you that helping hand to, pass, or they share their learnings with you. So basically that was it. In Amazon, I worked there for like 3 years and decided to move to Netflix, also through LinkedIn. So yeah, that's basically a summary of it.
I feel that with what you just said, you have like totally raised the stakes of LinkedIn because you've highlighted so much on the importance and how much LinkedIn can help you. But I feel that one thing we should also take note from what you just said is that dreams do happen, because you said you just started connecting with people in Amazon and then Google, and then you apply. And so you don't need any connection, as you put it. You could just, build yourself. I feel that that's also very important. And then
Yeah.
you work hard and then try to get it. Thank you very much. Mr. Mills, please, I believe that you also interned at Huawei. Could you kindly tell us how you ended up with Google?
Sure, yeah. So Frank and I were national service personnel at Huawei. And it was really exciting times, right? We like I studied switching, I think third year, and that's what is literally what piqued my excitement for telecoms. And it was really exciting going to be an engineer, field engineer with Huawei, moving from site to site, connecting your laptop and configuring the slides and you can make the phone calls like really, really exciting times. But I think I sort of wanted a little bit of a change at a certain point, and I wanted to see different aspects of business, which wasn't always the case. So I was quite stubborn and always thought I wanted to be like an engineer for the rest of my life. And so there was this opportunity to apply to Vodafone for their management training program where you do like rotations across different functions. And I didn't even want to apply at the time. And my wife now, who was my girlfriend then, who I also interned, did my national service with at Huawei, said like, why didn't you put in the application? And so we put in the application. And I remember, Franz, you also shortlisted, right? But
Yeah.
we were both in Kumasi working for Huawei. We had to come to Accra. And anyway, Franz stepped out sort of in the last minute. But essentially, through that management training program, I got a different sort of insight into finance, sales, marketing, right? And I found that I sort of had a flair, and I like those things. I like to be able to see a business from a 360-degree angle, right? And so I joined Vodafone uh, after the rotation, did engineering for a little bit, and then I moved into marketing, and then I moved into product management. Had the opportunity to move to London, where our Vodafone headquarters is. I worked there for 3 years as a product manager, and then I was still like really getting interested in sort of more on the financial side. Like I was still excited about tech companies, but I wanted to understand like how does, for example, a company become like a unicorn? Why is Uber like $40 billion, and why is Facebook $80 billion? What goes into it? What are some of the financials? What's some of the strategy? Why will Facebook buy WhatsApp? Like stuff like that. Like I wanted to understand stuff like that. So I started to go to business school. That's when I went to Yale. I did 2 years full time, and then I went into consulting, right? So strategy consulting, where we essentially advise big firms. And because I was interested in tech, I went to San Francisco, and a lot of my clients were sort of in the big tech companies. And so advising them on things like the company strategy. So we do things like 3-year strategy, we do product level strategy, etc. And then, I mean, I love consulting. It's really cool, but it's like also a lot of work. Like there were times when I was working from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. or 7 a.m. to 1 a.m. Right, like continuously for like 2 weeks. Right, they pay a lot of money, but they make it work for it. Right, and so I decided I sort of wanted to leave that kind of lifestyle. I had just had my twins. The family was growing large. I wanted to be home more, and so decided to go into mainstream tech. And because I built that flair for strategy and operations, I got this role here in London with Google, so doing more business strategy and operations, like I mentioned earlier.
Mr. Mills. The next set of questions will be focused on your education here. I know that it's always said that, I mean, Ghanaian education is mainly theoretical, right? And so you learn a lot of mathematics, what they say, chew and pour, and then you chew, you put in formulas in your head, all of those things. The first question I want to ask is, Mr. Roland, to you, was it helpful? I mean, applying it to where you are now, do you think that if you could have started better, maybe from primary SHS, they could have taught you math in a much better way so that it will help you with what you are doing now? We can't, Mr. Ribeiro, please, we can't hear you. So, hello? Mr. Ribeiro, please, if you can hear me, kindly wave your hand. Wow, we can't hear you on this side. And please, can you guys hear him? You can't hear him. Okay, then Doc, kindly answer the question for me for the meantime. How different was the education? Were you able to apply it to where you are now? And if you got the chance, would you take back the hands of time and acquire better, more practical education?
No, I think, yes, the system can be better, but it also kind of sets you up for success in this environment because we realize that the kind of rigorous education that we have in Ghana, once you go outside the country, wherever you go to, the system there becomes easy for you because you've gone through so much in the Ghanaian education system. I'll be honest that there's a lot of courses that I took, electromagnetism, thermodynamics, that I did not fully grasp the concepts. And surprisingly, I have to use them in my job right now. But I thank God for the internet. There are so many courses online right now that you can go back and try to remember what was taught in class. Yeah, the system is tough. It sets you up, but it can definitely be better. We can try and focus a little bit more on the hands-on portion of the courses that we take instead of all the theory.
Right. And so, for instance, with the thermodynamics that you mentioned, how hard or easy was it for you to apply it practically? Because I know what we do here is mostly first law of thermodynamics. You mentioned it, you recite it. I mean, it's very theoretical, but how difficult
Yeah.
was it for you working with it when you know just very much practical?
So, for example, when you're taking thermodynamics back in Kenya, I mean, it's been a long time, but I don't know if right now if you're using simulation software for, let's say, thermodynamics. But if you are, that's a good thing. When I was doing thermodynamics, no. I always joke, let me just segue a little bit. I always joke to my peers here that, hey, I learned programming on the blackboard. And they're like, what? But anyway, so how do I apply thermodynamics? So we have a simulation software. You need to understand how heat is moving for you to set up your system. If you don't have that background, it's very difficult for you to set up the simulation parameters. So that is what we are missing back in KNUST. As I said, I don't know if that is still the case. If that is not, then that is, it's very awesome. But the theory is important. It's not just about chewing and pouring. It's also about how to apply it. And in my scenario or in my situation, I have to set up an environment that I'm able to set up in such a way that I know how heat is flowing and what will impact my models and what will not.
Okay. See, so I know that it could have been better, but it's not too bad. Is that the case?
It definitely could be better. That's why I'm saying I don't know if that is still the case. Hopefully, you are able to do some software or some simulations that you can apply those basic principles. If it's not, then if that's not the case, then I guess not a lot has changed since then.
So thank you very much. Let me move on to Mr. Frank. First year electrical engineering. I read electrical engineering myself, and so first year electrical engineering, you read algebra, you read calculus, a lot of mathematics. I don't know. At the top where you are, are those things necessary? Looking back, do you feel that it was important that you studied all the math and then the differentiation and the differential? I mean, a lot of things. Was it really worth it?
Yeah, I think back then I didn't really get why we were doing a lot of the courses that you listed. Not that they were not important, but I think it was because we lacked the context for why we were doing them. I mean, many years down the line, I remember we did statistics, for example, and now I have to really, apply statistics to what I'm doing. And I'm like, okay, so this was why I needed to learn statistics. But at the time when we were doing statistics, I really didn't have the context of why I was doing statistics. It was basically, okay, a course that you had to do. And, I always compare the KNUST education and what I'm exposed to now, especially when I moved to Amazon, as like being taught arithmetic, like 1 + 1 is 2, or 1 + 3 is 4, and being given a story problem. Amma has 1 orange and Kofi has 3 pineapples. How many fruit do they have in all? Like in total, right? You need to know that it is still 1 + 3. You need to be able to understand the application of the 1 + 3 that you learned in arithmetic into the real world problem. And I think the gap with my experience in KNUST was a lot of things that we did was very important. You see that these courses are taught everywhere, but then the context is missing in terms of how to actually translate that from the classroom into solving real life problems. I apply a lot of the things that we studied. For example, GSM fundamentals. I remember when I went to Huawei, that course that I did in switching engineering was really, really relevant. And that was actually one good example of a course that was very hands-on and very practical in KNUST. And that gave me a very good foundation into telecommunications. Now, there are other courses like the mathematics. It's good to have the quantitative background as an engineer, because a lot of the problems that you face if you are going to like fix with software, with simulations, it's very important to have that quantitative foundation, which we have in the algebras and the analysis that you're mentioning. So it's actually very important. I think what you need to see is how to apply what you are learning to the real world problem that you face in big tech.
Okay, all right, sure. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. I know that to all the students listening to us, so you should know that all the mathematics will pay off. And so just, hold on tight. It will all be worth it. And Mr. Roland, welcome back. Please, can you hear me now?
I was gonna. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. Thank you, man. So if you could answer the question for us, when you further.
Yeah, I remember the question about the things you learn in tech and how relevant they are now.
Yes, if you could answer that.
So, yeah, I have a bit of an unpopular stance on this. I think it's basically because of where I've ended up. But for me, probably I would say 90% of, I won't say 90% because I'm not doing much power. But let's say if I take away all the power courses because I'm not doing power, almost everything else that I learned in tech has been extremely useful to me in my field of work. And this includes all the analysis and all the math and all the calculus and all your algebra and all those things. It basically comes down to the fact that I'm basically in an extremely technical field where you're kind of designing, modeling problems and solving them every day. So those things actually come in really handy. Now, were they taught well in tech? It's kind of hard to answer that. They could have been taught better, but since I went to tech, I've basically only taken one other math class out of tech, and I'm able to basically find my way around my job. And same thing with the control. I've never taken any control class since I left tech, but I basically design control systems for a living. So all that knowledge from tech is still very relevant to me today, and I'm able to use. Now again, back when it was taught, there was no end in sight. There was no physical system where they tell you, this is going to work here, this is going to work here, this is how this applies in the real system. But a lot of the focus was on understanding theory. And my take on that is that the theory is extremely important. It's probably equally or even more important than the practical aspect of it, because everything practical, every system you go and design has some basis in theory. If that theory is not correct, you end up building things that don't work, right? When your systems don't work, when there are issues, you can trace it back down by steadily analyzing things theoretically back to some root cause somewhere, and you can figure out what the solution is. So knowing your theory, having your base, having those fundamentals is extremely important. And again, we always complain that this is not practical, and this is for me, Right? Back then, that complaints was coming, usually would come from the fact that we didn't understand what was being taught, or it looked so abstract. But if you buckle down and try to understand them there as they are, they actually end up being extremely useful to you down the line.
Much. I think interesting to note that the theory is equally as important as the practical. And so shouldn't be too bothered that we are doing just a lot of theory, but then it's also as equally important as the practical. But Mr. Mills, this question is directly to you. As young engineers, like many of us are in final year, what would you want us to know moving into the industry? Because school is totally different from work. And so, for instance, if you come to class, if you come or you don't come to class, nobody really, you will not be punished. But it's a different case industry. What would you advise us? What words of advice would you give us moving into the industry?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Cool. Yeah. Before I move to your question, to that one little thing to the previous discussion about sort of what we're learning at Tech. And I will say that I agree with what all the three speakers have said. What I want to say additionally, so I worked for about 3 years in engineering, and since then I've worked with engineering companies, but I've done it more from a strategy business point of view. What the courses that we did helped me with in my job is it helped me to develop and build analytical skills and critical thinking, right? Just going to look at the kind of triple integrations that we're doing and the algebra and all those, deleted neighborhoods of whatnot that we're doing, right? Like all of those things, being able to think about those and solve problems around them actually helps you in any context, right? I've worked in consulting where I've worked for financial companies, retail companies, semiconductor cloud companies, right? And so in any context, it helps you to build that sort of analytical skill and be able to critically analyze a certain problem and build your way towards a solution, right? And so it's really, 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 really helpful, right? So that's what I'll sort of add to everything that has been said. In terms of getting ready for the world of work, I'll say sort of related to the earlier discussion around what you're learning in school. I think a lot of things that we're learning in school is foundational stuff that, because as an electrical engineer or even as a mechanical engineer, there are so many things that you can go into, right? Think about the PhDs, right? Like Judy, she's gone very, very deep into a certain area, and it took her, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 years to do that, right? And that's one tiny area that's a branch out of electrical engineering. And so you can find yourself working in different areas that use the fundamental that you've got from your engineering degree, but then you're going to be focused on a very specific area, right? And so what you need to be aware of is that you're definitely going to learn new things. And so go with this mindset of this growth mindset where you're going to learn things that are going to build upon the things that you've learned. You're going to learn the practicalities. Unfortunately, like other speakers have said, educational system is not as practical as can be. And so you're going to have the additional context. You're going to have the actual problem, actual customers that you're going to be solving for. And so going there with that attitude of there's so much that I'm going to learn, and I'm going to Frank talked a lot about mentors and coaching and being able to get people that can guide you, right? And so I think it is anyone sort of like a single thing, that I think will guide you as you go into the world of work. It's having that mindset that there's so many things that you need to learn and just avail yourself and apply yourself to it, right? In any new field that you go into, like this, so like when we are Huawei, Frank was talking about it, we had all these documentation, loads and loads of pages of documentation about how the DSE looks like, how the, and I'm sure it's the same for Judy in her work and Roland in his work, and like at Google, right? Like lots of documentation, right? So it's all about having that mindset that you're going to go into the specifics of the details, get some coaches and mentors to guide you along the way, but you're building on the foundation of what you've studied in school. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that I would say.
So even after completing school, once you enter the workplace, there are still so many things that you would have to learn. I just want to be clear on that.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, like in my example, right? Like, so I've worked as an engineer, I've worked in marketing, I've worked in product management, I've worked in consulting, I've worked in strategy and operations, right? So like at every point in that journey, like I had to relearn everything again, right? And so like I know how to build a financial statement, I know how to do a model to be able to sort of get how to get to sort of what is Intel's market capitalization, right? Why is Google $1 trillion and sort of Apple $2 trillion, stuff like that, right? I'm also able to, well, maybe now not anymore, but I was able to at a point configure like a BSD, a microwave dish, to make sure, like, so at each point, like there's so much learning that you have to do. And it's just going with that mindset that, like the journey continues. We are lifelong learners, right? And if you want to succeed, that's what you got to do, right?
Thank you very much. Look, I don't know whether you would say the same thing, because I believe that with BSc electrical engineering, master's electrical engineering, PhD electrical engineering, are you still learning new stuff at Intel?
Yeah, I'm learning new stuff. Even this week, I'm learning new stuff. It's a never-ending cycle. Every day there's if the thing is, if you want to keep up to speed as to where the industry is going, and it doesn't matter whether electrical, chemical, biomedical, it doesn't matter what kind of engineering that you are doing. If you want to keep up to speed as to what is happening in the world, you need to do a lot of reading and a lot of learning, because the world is changing, so fast. And if you decide to be stagnant, you're not going to go anywhere. Your peers are going to move. Your peers that are looking or learning the new stuff are going to move ahead, and you that are not learning the new stuff, you're going to be behind. So learning it has to become second nature. You have to be willing to spend some few extra hours to learn something new every week, every day. So yeah, learning is a constant it's a constant thing. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Mr. Frank, a few of us might have a few concerns as a Ghanaian or as an African going into a big company like Amazon or Netflix. I mean, were there any difficulties you might have had? I mean, especially considering the fact that you are not from around and work permit and stuff. And so, were there any difficulties you faced? I mean, if you know anything in your early years as an Amazon engineer?
Yeah, I'll say initially, like moving from Ghana I actually moved to Ireland. I was the only like Ghanaian there. There were some other people from Nigeria, but being the only person from Ghana at that time was, naturally, I would say naturally, but for my kind of personality, I kind of suffered this kind of, imposter syndrome that, what am I doing here? I mean, am I really at the right place? Will I succeed? Those kind of questions, right, would definitely hit you. And especially when you are exposed to the things you have to learn. Like you sometimes you think that, okay, like for example, when I was an expert in my field via a certification. So I thought, okay, like I know everything about networking. And then you go and you're thrown like like a warehouse of documentation, which you've not seen before. Meanwhile, you claim you're an expert. You definitely feel that inadequacy. But once you come to understand that, like, you know, as humans, if we apply ourselves to anything consistently, we would get it. You kind of, you know, brush that that fear aside. And also, if you have like very supportive peers, so for example, for me, my manager at when I moved to Amazon was kind of very supportive, because he realized that, okay, I was like the new person coming from, you know, from Ghana, and obviously created some kind of room and space for me to kind of, you know, level up with a lot of the things that I was doing. And one thing too was also not being afraid to ask, you know, questions, even if they sounded like, you might feel like, yeah, I should know this, but being able to, you know, ask the question anyway is very important. So that was definitely a challenge, moving from Ghana to Amazon. It was a big gap, but I would say that once you have that mindset of, you know, continuously applying yourself and you know, being consistent with it, you always getting mentors and getting people to kind of help you. That was how I actually made it. But definitely, it's a big challenge.
Sure, thank you very much. I also want to ask, is Mr. Roland is your younger brother?
Yeah, Roland is yeah.
Roland, please let me ask you this question. I mean, what's the motivation? What was the motivation to also read electrical engineering? Was it that you were following your older brother's business, or was it something you also found yourself to be interested in?
I would say more the former than the latter. So we actually have one other older brother who also did electrical engineering.
Oh, interesting.
So basically, there's 3 electrical engineers in my family, and yeah, for me, it was mostly that it was kind of familiar, and he was doing it, so it was kind of going to be a straight follow on for me. And you know, once I started reading some of the books he brought home, I was like, yeah, I want to do this.
Yeah, so I feel that as a family, it was easier for you to study.
Yeah.
I would like to go on and ask a number of questions. Just to how the question is going on your the first one is, up until now, are there any mistakes that you feel you have made? What you are doing and advice you give us concerning the mistakes?
So I'm not sure if it's me, but I could barely hear your question.
Okay, it wasn't just you.
Yeah, same here.
Sorry about that. And so I'm saying that I'm going to ask more questions. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to ask a number of questions, right? And these questions will go through all 4 of you. I would humbly ask that you each answer the question for me, right? The first one is, I mean, up until this point, are there any mistakes, are there any major mistakes that you feel that you have made? What were they, and would you give us any advice regarding or concerning these mistakes as to how to avoid them? And so, Doc, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I will not say mistakes. Maybe probably, you know, mistakes makes it a negative, give it a negative connotation. Maybe let's say life learning experiences. So one life learning experience which I've been thinking about lately is back when I was in tech, I should have paid more attention to those so-called courses that we didn't see the use for. Because here I am in my job and I have to go back to like first year math, you know, second year math, or some course which I'm like, oh, I'm not going to use this again. Okay, let me just go through the motions. And I'm here, I'm like, oh man, I really wish I had paid more attention. And and I had to go back and learn them. And like, oh, if I had learned them by now, it would have been much easier. So that is one thing I've been really struggling with of late, because I can't go back in time. But if I have advice to anybody here, it would be pay attention. One day you might need it.
You definitely need it.
Okay. All right, so
All the
I
creative
just want
totally
to jump
bounce.
in. I know, right? So I was just going to say, right? So Front, Judy and I were in the same class. Judy was valedictorian of our class, right? And so Judy, if Judy is saying she should have paid more attention to some courses, then I mean, I'm not going to say it again, right? Like, right. So I mean, I think it just drives home the fact that those things are really important, right? And so I just want to hammer that point. I have a sort of related, and I like the way you put it, Judy. It's definitely not a mistake. It's something, it's definitely a learning, something I wish I could have done better, right? And that's also because I've started to venture into sort of different like business. I'm looking at business as a whole, right? And so I've, I've obviously done my MBA. I've learned about finance strategy, economics, etc. And one thing that I really wish that I did was to learn about things outside of engineering earlier on, right? And so in at Tech, I think final year or so, we had the option to do like accounting French or something. And to the best of my knowledge, that was the only thing we could do outside of engineering, right? And I feel like even that, right? I've studied French before, and I sort of still want to do French, even though I could have gone to do accounting, right, and gotten something new, right? But even outside of that, I feel like there should have been opportunity, or even me study on my own things like economics, history, stuff like that, just to become a well-rounded, like fully whole business professional. And maybe that's me because I'm sort of more on sort of the business side, but it's definitely that and getting more exposure to other things, right? If you listen to people like Elon Musk and all these things, right? They have the depth of the knowledge, but they also have the breadth of the knowledge that cuts across so many different areas, right? And that's sort of the profile that I'm trying to build for myself, and I feel like I should have maybe started that a little bit earlier. And then the other thing is I also wish that, like Billy was saying, we learned to code on the blackboard, right? And things like that were not really exciting, and so I wish that I was like a guru, like an actual, like, building stuff like that, which I'm sort of starting to, but, yeah, so those would be my two life learnings, I'll say.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mr. Frank, if you could continue for us, we'll end with
Yeah.
Roland.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So I wouldn't also call them mistakes. I think for me, if I could go back, I would do more extracurricular activities because I've had to realize it's very, like I think Judy mentioned it earlier, it's equally important. I've been in a team where we were trying to solve a problem, and then someone actually brought like I can't remember exact code, but basically an analogy from he basically he was a sailor, so he learned how to sail with his dad. They used to go on the ocean, and he actually brought an analogy from his sailing experience into our engineering problem, and that actually helped us to have a path forward. So these things all bring different perspectives to how we solve problems, not how we solve problems and how we look at problems. So it's very important. I think the other thing I would have done is to, I think, get my hands more dirty, like embarking on like personal engineering projects, because you see people, there are so many online communities, right? You see students, creating their own repositories, like working on personal projects and then sharing with other people and learning, from online communities, not just the classroom. So I think that is one thing I would have done more of. It's something that I've learned now. It wasn't a mistake that I didn't do. I think I did other things, but it's very important to have like different perspectives of through extracurricular activities. So even I always wanted to take the swimming course in KNUST, that BC course. Never took it because at the end of the day, finally I wanted to take. I'm like, okay, finally you're doing your project. You think you can have time to go learn swimming? So I never took it, but I would have learned something, right, which would have maybe helped me in my work. So it's equally important. Those VC courses, I remember when we went on campus, we were like, oh, VC courses were not important, but they are really, really important. I think I would have, if I had the opportunity of going back, I'll probably have taken a VC course every semester. Yeah.
Well, kindly end for us.
So I think in line with the theme here, I wouldn't call them mistakes. It's just things that would have probably shaped me into a better engineer than I am today. And I think NSML's probably touched on one, which is just programming. It's probably, I don't know how it's being taught now. It was not taught anywhere near how it should be taught back when I was in tech. And as an engineer, if you think you're doing power or you're not going to be doing software, so you shouldn't know how to code, I am here to disabuse your mind of that notion that you are extremely wrong, that coding is like a fundamental tenet of any engineering profession. And I wouldn't even say just like electrical, like across the board, just learn how to write some code. It's extremely important. It's going to be extremely useful, and you wouldn't know where. Next thing is just soft skills. And one of the things that has helped me a lot in my career, and this is a skill that I acquired outside of tech, I would say, is just putting together a nice, good presentation. Like putting my thoughts, documenting them down in a way that is nice and coherent and clear, so that when I share it to people, I make an impression and they can understand what I'm saying and follow my thoughts. Now, this is a skill that probably not emphasized at all in tech, like zero, right? But it's extremely important. Learning how to put a presentation together so that you can clearly and effectively communicate your ideas, whether they are technical, whether they are social, whatever, is an extremely important skill you need to learn. And even PowerPoint aside, just putting together a nice Word document, which is clearly formatted with your table of contents and your headings for every section. All those things that you have to do for your final project, take them extremely seriously, right? If you wanna go far, whether technical or not, in any big company, learning how to put together good, concise, clear documentation is extremely important. And I really wish I started earlier with stuff like this, but it's never too late, right? Learn how to put document, whether you're using Word or LaTeX, whatever. Learn how to put presentations, put clear documents, well-formatted documents together. It's extremely important. And the last thing I'll add is I've had the opportunity to interview students here, for openings in my team. And one thing that has stood out to me is, like, for a lot of students here, especially undergrad, theoretically, you wouldn't say this person is good, right? He kind of knows enough to get by. The things that impress you about them is the kind of like little projects that they've been able to do by themselves. And that kind of goes into what Frank mentioned, right? That, he wish he had sold his hands more. And it's pretty much the same with me, that, like, I have a student who kind of goes through a project today that like completely blows my mind. Like, he's building his own AI computer using analog circuits and switches, and he's like showing me how it works. And I'm like, wow, this guy is so great. And like, you ask him a few technical questions and he's like completely faltering. But just that experience of building that project together, going through all the motions, buying all the components, building it together and getting it to work, it's just so impressive. You can't not listen to him or give him an opportunity. So like, trying to build stuff, like, get your hands dirty, buy some Raspberry Pis or MSP 430s, plugging for TI here, whatever you can to like build little side projects or hobby projects together. It's going to be extremely helpful down the line. And for me, one big gap I've had is, I design chips that go into big systems, and a lot of the time, I really don't understand the system my chip is going to end up in so well, just because I've not been exposed to like system level stuff before. All I know is this little chip that I have to work on. And I feel like if I've been doing, like some kind of higher level projects on my own, I would understand the end use of those things a bit better. So that's pretty much it.
Yes, thank you very much, all of you, for your submissions. I think that from this evening, I'm going to start making a few changes with myself. I'll maybe start learning how to code and a few more hand and soft skills. I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot. In the coming years, the few coming years, you see yourselves relocating in Ghana, do you see coming back to Ghana, coming to start something here? Because oftentimes we complain a lot about brain drain, and having very good students go outside and do well for other companies. I don't know, do you see yourselves coming back to Ghana to maybe start something or even to work in Ghana here? Doc, please.
So yes, I mean, I already started something in one of the schools in Accra. It's called like First Lego League. So it's Legos that they have to build to perform some random, to solve some random problem. And that is a pilot that I started and was very successful. And I'm looking at expanding it to other parts of Ghana. It's targeted at between class 3, class 6 girls to get them interested in engineering. So of course, I'm looking at starting something like that in Ghana, because as you said at the beginning of this program, there are very few female engineers. I mean, at least back when I was in tech. I don't know right now if that is still the case. Hopefully it's improved, but and to get them there, or to get them to start thinking about engineering, you have to get, those class 3 classes, GHS girls to start thinking about problem solving. It doesn't have to be electrical. It's chemical, it can be petroleum, it can be computer science. So yes, it's not like we forget about our homeland, but for me, for example, I'm passionate about helping the next generation, and that is something that I have started. So if anyone is interested, contact me on LinkedIn and we'll see how we can work together.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Mills.
Yeah. So in terms of relocating to Ghana, it's something that I have been thinking about, like very seriously for, I don't know, maybe the past 2 years. Sort of looking at so many dimensions, like family, profession, blah blah blah, stuff like that. I actually early this year recently interviewed for a job. Like when I got the offer, and it was like really good money, right? Like something I never would have thought in my tech days that I would be. But I eventually decided against it, right? And it's again for a different set of reasons, sort of like family, stuff like that. But then at the same time, my wife and I, we were talking a lot about so many things, obviously, but some of the things that we talk about are experiences outside of Ghana versus the sort of foundation that sort of people build in Ghana. So, for example, the average American or British that we have encountered is an avid reader and has read like so many books and stuff like that. And even from sort of like childhood, versus when we were growing up, it was not necessarily the case, right? And so we're thinking about sort of trying to help, bring about reading, sort of setting up maybe like an exchange, a book exchange, library sort of things like that, that will sort of get people, into the notion of reading. Like we mentioned earlier, like throughout your career, you're going to be learning a lot, and to learn, you need to read, right? And a lot of people that we've seen successful are people that are like real avid readers, right? And so that's sort of something that we're trying to establish, maybe sort of something like a scholarship scheme as well to help people in sort of like local communities or some churches that we used to belong to here in Ghana to try and offer help in as little ways as we can.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mills. And Mr. Frank, if you could.
Yeah, I think for me, coming back to Ghana is always on my list. There are so many problems or challenges that we have that engineering has the answers to. So for me, what I've started doing for some years now is kind of like I see people doing a lot of like running a lot of startups in Ghana, being an advisor to them, just to walk them through what they are doing or even connecting them to the right people who have that domain expertise, just to be able to get their project off the ground. Personally, I have some ideas which are still in the planning phase. So definitely I am going to move back to Ghana with some solutions, hopefully.
Thank you very much. And then Frank.
So moving back to Ghana, I wouldn't say is kind of. I think about it, but it's in a more retirement stage phase of my life. I haven't really kind of thought through something in a more near term, and most of that is just based off of kind of the skills that I have now and how I can be effective. I think it will be kind of hard to fit in because there's basically no industry for IC design in Ghana unless I basically start one, which is in itself an extremely kind of not straightforward task. In any case, I don't have to necessarily be in Ghana to be effective or help Ghana, and I definitely kind of think through ways in helping with one of my passions is basically electronics from a hardware standpoint, which I feel like it's extremely lacking in our engineering education. There's more focus on power and software, but nothing in between. So we're trying to kind of work through some stuff with some people to get some of these things going in Ghana and help as much as they can.
Thank you very much. And I want to also add that I know that it doesn't have to be big, anything too big. I know that in your own little way, whichever way you feel you can support and come back and give back to your motherland, we appreciate it if you did this. The next question, I don't know, this is more on the lighter side. Is there any memorable moment, your most memorable moment in KNUST? If you could share for us. I'm assuming Doc to say a valedictorian speech. That's just my assumption. But if you could share with us the most memorable moment here. Yeah.
No, I don't think my valedictorian speech was my highlight. I think my highlight in KNUST was being part of the KNUST sports delegation and going for like the West African Games, going for the Gusa Games. I think that those were some of my best, my best moments, because it just gave me the opportunity to do something that I liked doing. So yeah, I think I'll say that those were my best moments in KNUST.
You think you could have qualified for the Olympics?
Well, I think with man, that's a tough question. We don't know. I mean, I can say yes, but we don't know.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mills. Mr. Mills, please. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I was trying to get unmuted. Yeah, so I have quite a few highlights, right? My wife is my classmate from Tech, right? We were both in electrical engineering. I asked her out in one of our classrooms on campus at the faculty. Actually, this year I've been working from home, so I took my 5-year-old daughter sort of on a drive just to show her around, get her interested in engineering and stuff like that. And I showed her the classroom where I asked my wife out. So that's definitely one of the highlights. Like I mentioned, I also was the president for Harvest Church KNSD, and so it was really lots of exciting times. Get the community, building up faith, doing outreaches, stuff like that. And those were like really, really fun and exciting things.
I'll have to connect personally with you and talk to you more about grabbing here, because it's also very, very important for me at this point. And Mr. Frank, is your most memorable moment in KUST? Hello.
Yeah, I think for me, my most memorable moment would be being part of the TraTech team. So I don't know whether it's still ongoing. It was a trade and technology fair, and I was part of the team that kind of worked on some projects. I think that was really fun because we got to really do some cool stuff and present at TraTech. I think when I cast my mind back, that was really fun times that I had back on campus. I don't know whether TraTech is still, you still have TraTech on campus where we have like different engineering, all the engineering faculties kind of display their own projects and stuff like that.
Yes, and so we still do. Like, in actual fact, on Wednesday we're having a makers fair where we'll have a program similar to what we're just talking about. On Thursday, yes, we'll have a program similar to what, and so we'll try to keep you updated on everything that happens. And Roland, and
I would say my highlight was performing with the university choir at the National Theatre. We did a rendition of Israel in Egypt for the first time performing in Ghana at the National Theatre. That was an awesome experience. I mean, not just the performance itself, which was great, but the entire process of getting the whole choir to prepare. It was just, I mean, it's one of the highlights, my highlights of tech. Close second will be valedictory speech, but Israel in Egypt definitely top of that list.
just for clarification, you also valedictorian.
I didn't hear that.
I think just for confirmation, you also valedictorian.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's one word. Okay, all right. Okay, all right, that's fine. We'll go on to take a few questions from the students. I'll read them one by one. The first one says, the guys who work for Huawei, were they posted there or they applied for national service or recruited by the companies? So I think bank and are you posted there or you applied or you?
So we applied. We applied to Huawei. We went through some interviews, and then when we got the job, for those who got the job from Huawei, I think Huawei then worked with the National Service Secretariat to change our posting to Huawei. I mean, this was 11 years ago, right? So I'm not sure whether that still happens.
The system, it's still the same. You apply and you select a lucky few. Right. And so the next question says, please ask Doc whether she's married and how she copes her work with her marriage. And if she's married, and if no, when will she marry? When will she marry?
So I think first of all, the person should maybe change their name from unknown so that we know who is asking that question, because behind the name unknown, it can be anybody. And if they do that, I will answer their question.
Hey, oh, that's my dog. Right. So I'm sure the person will come again with this one.
Yes, I mean, yeah, I think it's good for everybody to have their names out there. If you cannot ask a question and your name is unknown, so yeah.
Right. So this is for Ajaklo. Hi. This is especially for Mr. Mills. How difficult or easy is it to switch from engineering to the business side of life? Any tips for engineering students interested in the business side of life?
Yeah, so I'll say switching to business wasn't too hard. It did require a lot of hard work, right? But it wasn't too hard, right? I don't know if I'm saying things that are up to, but I mean, it requires a lot of hard work applying itself to really understand the fundamentals of accounting, finance, economics, stuff like that. But I think that like I was talking about, the sort of courses that we do that are building your analytical muscle are really then helpful in then being able to apply those kinds of critical thinking and analysis in different areas, right? And I think that engineering is still the hardest course that I've done, and so it's not too hard, but you need to apply yourself and do the work.
But you need to, put in effort as well, because it's not too easy either. Right, we have someone with his hand raised. I'd like to take the question from the person. Senna, please, you can ask your question.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious for Frank and Ernest, how was immigration handled? Was it that you guys applied for these positions abroad and you guys were selected and immigration was done for you? Or I'm just curious, how was immigration from like Ghana to where you guys are right now? How was it handled by the companies, and how did you apply like in the first place? Like if you have more details about that.
So I think for me, I applied, like I said, I applied through LinkedIn. These companies basically are looking for talent everywhere and anywhere. So once you go through the interviews, they have an immigration team which will look at your situation and then work with you throughout the process. So I mean, you just have to focus on, knowing your stuff and getting through the interview and getting the offer. Once that is done, they have teams that would work with you to relocate you wherever possible.
I hope the next question was answered. Justice Tet, you can ask your question.
Yeah, please, I want to ask them all this question. I want to ask if they apply for online internship or online studies when they were back in tech.
What kind of online studies or internship? If you could be more specific, maybe with an example or something.
I don't have any examples, but some of the lecturers have been talking about those things, that we should try to apply for online studies or online internships.
So any of you would want to?
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't do any of that, but I can see where your lectures are coming from, right? And this is 11 years post our graduation, and there's so many more opportunities for you guys available online, right? Like COVID has happened, you can do remote internships and stuff like that, right? And so if there are opportunities for you guys to do like some remote work, you're talking about online studies, right? Frank was also alluding to it, like there are courses online, Coursera, blah, blah, blah. Like, these things were not as readily available to us at the time. So, I mean, I didn't do it at least, but I think they're in abundance now, and you guys, girls, should absolutely take full advantage of such opportunities.
Okay, thank you very much. Would any of you like to touch on that question too, or if you want us to move on? Okay, so I'll move on. We have
just add one more to that. Just that there's a lot of online course material available now that I completely encourage all of you to take, and it spans many fields if possible. they definitely help you, whether they are professional certification courses or just normal courses from US universities. Just give you lots of knowledge that will help you down the line. And some of these things, if you get certificates, in the era of LinkedIn, they kind of look good in your profile. So definitely take as many as you can, and it's not hard to find them. Just basically go Udemy, Coursera, or even like to specific universities who offer courses online. In this era of COVID, there are just so many available. So take advantage of them.
Thank you very much. Try to take as many online courses as you can. Samuel Bafo AJ, he says that how difficult is it to secure a job with your undergraduate degree from KNUST, Ghana? How is it difficult to secure a job in USA with your KNUST degree? Do you understand the question? Without any other graduate degree.
Okay, I just kind of responded to that a little bit. For undergrad coming directly from Ghana, a lot of US companies are required to give preference to US graduates as much as they can. But there's a lot of them who are looking for specific skill sets or specific pay brackets that they probably won't find in the US. So if there are opportunities, you are definitely welcome to apply to them. But my experience is that it's probably going to be difficult. But I'm sure the other panelists could have different opinions on this.
Yeah. I think I agree with what Roland said. It's going to be extremely difficult because the US will give priority to the US graduates. You are coming in with an undergraduate, so it's thousands of people who have also graduated with the same degree. They probably have much more internship experience, a lot of projects. So unless you are spectacular in some way, it's going to be very difficult.
All right, sure. Thank you very much. And Frank?
Yeah, so I think for me, my experience is more in Europe, where I kind of just have my KNUST degree, and the other things I have are all like professional certifications and like courses that I did online, like Udemy. So basically focusing on the skills. In Europe, I've seen like the best software engineer I know, for example, studied economics, not an engineering degree, right? But has the skill, like basically built his skill, built his portfolio. So there are different markets would have like different requirements. I know that in the US, like Roland was saying, that is a requirement. But in Europe, I've seen people who even, senior engineers with just finished high school, but can write code more than anyone you've ever met. So it's also about like packaging yourself, not just about the degree, but having the hands-on skill that is needed for the job. And if that profile looks good, you'll be given the chance for an interview. And if you can prove yourself, you definitely get it.
So thank you very much. It's not just about the degree, but it's also about having the requisite skills. Next question from Abdullah is that doing a master's degree in your program practical? Ernest, I'm not too sure that I myself understand the question, but I don't know whether you'd like to.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty ambiguous. So if Abdul can come and clarify, I mean, one way to maybe asking if like the course is practical, is the content that is being taught, is it practical? I mean, so from my side, I haven't studied a master's degree in engineering, it's in business, and it's 100% practical, right? Just to different clubs, but then also to the way the courses are taught with lots of research from like, PhDs that are world-renowned, some that have won like Nobel Prizes and stuff like that. And then using specific like the case method to discuss it. And so all those things like really prepare you and they're absolutely practical.
Right, sure. Thank you very much. We're going to take our very last question. He says, "Hi, I'm Solomon Taino. Please ask them if they were deliberate about their career, as in choosing a particular career to pursue, or they landed where they found any chance that could work." That's an interesting question. Were you, I mean, for instance, with Mr. Ernest, did you wake up and think that you want to work at Google, do everything possible, or you built yourself in such a way that you can work anywhere, and then when the opportunity came, you picked up the opportunity?
Yeah. So when I was sort of when I was at Tech, I thought I was going to get a PhD and come back and lecture. I actually spoke to Professor Frimpong. He made me PYCA, blah, 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 and things, just changed. And so what I will say is that at different points in my life, I have had different goals, and I've chosen to go after those goals in those moments, right? And so when I have the opportunity and, like my passion changes quite a lot. And so when like there's something new that I'm excited about, I sort of go after it. And that's how come I've landed in this. Sometimes luck has sort of a part to play in it, in terms of sort of the kind of company that you want, right? Like, so I wanted to work in consulting. It could have been McKinsey or Bain or BCG, but I ended up in BCG, not because I got all three of it. I didn't get all three of it, right? I wanted to work in big tech. I landed in Google, not because I got Amazon, but I didn't get Facebook, right? So it's stuff like that. You know sort of where you want to go, the sample space, but then you get lucky somewhere and not in other places.
Thank you very much. The very last question. It says, during these interviews, as in interview for jobs, what are some of the skill sets these interviewers want? Frank, please. During interviews, what are some of the skill sets interviewers want?
So I think for me, from my experience in Amazon and Netflix, and actually all the big tech companies, they are looking at how well you handle ambiguity, because the problems that these companies face are problems that, I mean, some are like kind of like the first of its kind, right? They are not problems that probably you've seen in a textbook or you've read somewhere. They are problems that are like first of their kind. So they are looking for people who are very good at handling ambiguous situations. Aside that, each role, depending on what it's about, would have some specific set of technical skills, right, that they would want to measure again. So if it's coding, they'll definitely, evaluate you on that bar, on the coding bar. If it is mechanical engineering, obviously there would be, you should have that technical requirement in the first place. But then there are other things in terms that we basically call like the cultural fit, which is like handling ambiguous situations and being able to kind of, ask questions, not being afraid to fail, things like that. They want people who are, being able to accept, show some vulnerability. Different companies have like different cultural traits. So depending on which company you are applying to, you need to know like what is the culture of this company, what are they looking for in their employees. And yeah, there's a lot of material out there that talks about company culture, and sometimes you get like maybe the founders of the company talk about what they look and what drives the company. Once you align with that vision, you can have those experiences in your interview, and that should be fine.
Thank you. Mr. Roland, you mentioned that you conduct interviews, and so if you could also answer this question for us. What are a few skill sets that interviewers often look out for during interviews?
So for me, for instance, and I need to move to my desk here. Give me a second. It's okay if we have a problem for you to solve and you get it wrong. If you get it wrong, that's not the end of the interview. In fact, the questions, a lot of the technical questions for interviews are designed for you to get it wrong on the first try. And the reason for that is that we will usually want to walk through your thought process in coming out with a solution. Okay, so we don't expect you to know the answer right off the bat. And that's really, so it's basically problem solving skills. How do you go from point A to B?
Hello. Yeah, Mr. Roland.
If you think about this problem enough, and you can come up with a solution. That thought process, going from step 1 to step 2, and reasoning through.
Hello. Mr. Roland, please.
In detail, clearly tell your interviewer how you are thinking, and if he moves you one direction or the other, you should be able to take his cues and go one direction or the other based on.
Hello, Mr. Ribeiro. Yeah, so we couldn't. Hello, hi there. Okay, and so I think that we've come to the end of our program. There are a few questions that the number of students are asking. I feel that if you want, you could connect with panelists on LinkedIn and then ask them further questions over there. We have with me here the president of the Ghana Engineering Student Association, His Excellency Master Papa Kwabena Techi. He's here to share with us a few words, give us a closing remarks.
Good evening and good afternoon, wherever you are. First of all, I would like to thank the Almighty God for such an opportunity. And I think the program has been successful. We weren't able to start the time we planned due to some technical challenges we had at our end, but after we resolved it, the program has been smooth. I want to thank all our speakers for the information they have shared with us. I believe they have enlightened us. And with this knowledge, we will be joining you very soon at Intel, at Netflix, at Amazon. So expect us in the coming years. Thank you very much for your time. To the students and to everyone who's going to, thank you. We hope to meet and interact again. Thank you very much. I'll hand it over to the moderator.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And so before we end, I'd like to touch on a few points that I wrote for those who might have joined in late. I'll run through all of them. The first one, try to build your network. And they emphasize on the importance of LinkedIn. They advise us to take advantage of professional certification. We encourage to have a dream because dreams do come true. And then also remember that all the courses that you are taking here, they will eventually pay off. And so pay particular attention to each and every one of them. Though the KNUST education might be a bit theoretical, you should remember that theory is also as important as the practical. The learning never stops. And so each and every day is a new day for us to continue learning. Also remember to learn other things outside your studies. Try to engage in more extracurricular activities. And finally, you are encouraged and advised to take part in personal projects. Try to get your hands dirty because it's these things that makes you a better engineer. Just before we sign out, I would like you all to give me or provide your LinkedIn names, maybe in the chat room. Yes, or any media to contact you. If you could just provide it in the chat room for our students who would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. To draw the curtains to this wonderful event, I'm your humble servant, Richard Isiama, the GISA Academic Board Chairperson. It has been a lovely event, and I thank you all for taking part. A special thank you to the panelists for the time spent with us this evening. A special thanks to all members who could make this possible. the GSA Media, the members of the KNUST IDL Center. Special shout outs to Seto Senaya for the support throughout all of this. And I wish you all a very good evening. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Peace.
Ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I'm from South Africa. I don't know. I'm a family of 17 children. Let